Hi, everyone, I'm Margaret Wilson. I'm a 65-year-old retired teacher from Springfield, and I want to share something important that happened to me. You remind me so much of your father when he was your age, I told my granddaughter Emily one day. She was sitting at my kitchen table doing her homework. She looked up and smiled, but it wasn't the bright, happy smile I remembered. Life in this quiet neighborhood used to be peaceful. That changed 2 years ago when tragedy struck. My only son, James, died in a terrible car accident. He left behind his wife, Sarah, and their daughter, my precious Emily. I remember the last time I saw James. He was fixing my porch swing, always putting his family first. Mom, I've got a date tonight. Can Emily stay with you? That's what Sarah said back then. At first, I understood. Sarah was only 34, and she was grieving, but soon, things began to change. Another new friend, Sarah, what about spending time with Emily? I asked her one day. I need to move on, Margaret, you of all people should understand that, she replied. Of course, I understood grief. I lost James too, but watching Sarah bring different men into her life while Emily sat quietly in my living room broke my heart. Have you met this Rick person? My friend Barbara asked me one afternoon over coffee. Barbara was a social worker before retiring, and those instincts never left her. Briefly, he seems nice, maybe too nice, I said. Something about him felt wrong. Emily had changed, too. She wasn't talking much anymore. Her teacher even called to say she was falling behind in math, though she'd always been a straight-A student. Then Rick started coming around more often. He wore expensive suits, drove flashy cars, and always talked about his business deals. Emily's so lucky to have a successful man in her life again, Sarah would say with a smile, but Emily would just look down at her shoes. One evening, Emily quietly asked me, Grandma, do I have to go home? What do you mean, sweetheart? I asked. Mom and Rick are always busy, they just watch TV in their room, they don't even make dinner anymore. Sarah's calls became more frequent. Margaret, can you take Emily tonight? Rick's taking me to a business dinner. Or, can Emily stay with you this weekend? Rick and I are going to a party, you don't mind, do you? The excuses kept piling up. Something's not right, Barbara said one day as we watched Emily through my kitchen window. She's not the same happy girl she used to be. I knew something was wrong. Emily barely ate, rarely smiled, and Sarah either didn't notice or chose to ignore it. And every time Sarah's phone buzzed, Emily would jump. It was always Rick, always some excuse to go out. One afternoon, I watched Emily get off the school bus. Her shoulders were slumped, and she dragged her feet. My teacher's instincts were screaming that something was terribly wrong, but I had no idea just how bad things would get. If I had known then what I know now. Mom's bringing Rick to live with us, Emily whispered to me one night, tears in her eyes. She says he's going to be my new dad. That was when everything started to fall apart, but I didn't realize, it was only the beginning of our nightmare. The following Wednesday morning, I stopped by Sarah's house to drop off Emily's science textbook. I had a spare key and let myself in. The silence felt strange, too quiet, until I heard soft sobbing coming from the kitchen. Don't come in, please, Grandma. Emily's voice trembled. I rushed in anyway. What I saw stopped me cold. My 12-year-old granddaughter stood by the stove, cradling her arm. Angry red burns marked her small hands. Oh my God, baby, what happened? I gasped. I messed up the eggs, she stammered. The pan was too hot. She wouldn't look at me. Where's your mother? Why are you cooking alone? She's sleeping, Emily mumbled. Rick, he likes his breakfast at 7 sharp. If it's not ready. Tears streamed down her face. How long has this been happening? I asked, my voice shaking. Since he moved in. Mom says I need to contribute, that I should be grateful he chose us. I grabbed the first aid kit and started treating her burns. That's when I noticed something else, older marks, yellow bruises, small cuts, some healing. Emily, did Rick do this to you? Emily flinched. He gets mad when things aren't perfect. Yesterday's toast was too dark. He grabbed me here. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing finger-shaped bruises on her arm. He said I was useless, like my dad. My blood boiled. Why didn't you tell me sooner, sweetheart? I whispered, my hands shaking. Mom said you'd try to take me away, Emily whispered, her voice trembling. She said no one would believe me anyway. Rick has important friends. I heard movement upstairs, and Emily panicked. Please don't say anything, Grandma. He'll know I told you. Last time I complained, He made me clean the whole house. I missed 3 days of school, scrubbing floors. 3 days? And your mother allowed that? I asked, horrified. She says I'm lying for attention, that I'm jealous of their happiness. The stairs creaked. Emily quickly wiped her tears and whispered, "Sit down, quick. Pretend you're helping me with homework." Just then, Rick appeared in the doorway, wearing an expensive robe. "Well, isn't this cozy?" he said, his voice cold. "Making trouble for your grandmother now, Emily?" "I just brought her textbook," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Always forgetful, aren't you, Emily? Just like your father, unreliable." I watched as Emily shrank into her chair, her hands trembling as she pretended to read. "Coffee ready?" Sarah shuffled into the kitchen, not even looking at Emily. It's brewing," Emily stammered. "Probably screwed that up too," Rick muttered, "just like breakfast." "I should get going," I said, grabbing my purse. Every instinct in me screamed to grab Emily and run. "Grandma," Emily said quietly, her voice small, "can I come over after school?" "Always trying to escape your responsibilities," Sarah snapped. "You have chores here." I looked into Emily's pleading, terrified eyes, and my heart shattered. "Actually, I need help organizing my photo albums," I said smoothly, lying. "It's for a family history project." "Fine," Rick said coldly, "but straight home after dinner. Those bathrooms won't scrub themselves." As I walked to my car, I heard Rick's voice rise. "These eggs are stone cold, can't you do anything right?" I gripped the steering wheel tightly, tears burning my eyes. My grandbaby was being tortured in that house, and I hadn't seen it until now, but this wasn't going to continue. "It ends now," I said to myself. Later that day, I showed Barbara photos of the marks on Emily's arms. "Look at these," I said, my voice shaking. "She claims she's clumsy, but we both know better," Barbara said, examining the photos of Emily's bruises. "This isn't clumsiness, Margaret. These are patterns of systematic abuse." "My friend Lisa from the police force needs to see this," Barbara added. I carefully placed a tiny camera into Emily's unicorn keychain. "Will this catch everything?" I asked. "Crystal clear audio and video," Barbara assured me. "Just make sure she keeps her backpack in the kitchen." The footage we collected was heartbreaking. Rick screamed at Emily over cold coffee. Sarah was snorting white powder in the bathroom while Emily cried outside the door. Late-night disciplinary talks made my blood run cold. "Emily, sweetie, can you tell me exactly what happened last Tuesday?" I asked her, recording our conversation quietly. "Rick said the bathroom tiles weren't sparkling," Emily whispered. "He made me clean them 3 times. When I started crying, She pulled back her sleeve and showed me fresh bruises on her shoulder. Detective Martinez looked over our evidence at Barbara's house. "Rick Thompson, why does that name sound familiar?" She typed quickly on her laptop. "Holy," she muttered, 3 domestic violence charges in Nevada. He changed his name and moved here." "There's more," Barbara added. "Sarah's boss called yesterday. Large amounts of money are missing from the company's accounts." I remembered the designer bags, the expensive jewelry Sarah had been flaunting, blood money, bought with my granddaughter's tears. The next day, Emily's math teacher called me. "Miss Wilson, I'm really concerned. Emily's missed 12 days of school this semester. When she does come, she's so tired she falls asleep in class. Yesterday, she couldn't even hold her pencil properly. She said her hands hurt from cleaning." The security footage from my house painted its own grim picture. At 2 a.m., Sarah's car screeched into the driveway. Emily stumbled out, half asleep. At 3 a.m., Rick's car drove by, checking to make sure Emily was really there. Then, one evening, Detective Martinez called with news. "Sarah's company laptop tells the story. She's been cooking the books for months, and guess who's been helping her?" "Rick," I guessed. "Bingo. He's using her access to funnel money through fake accounts. They've got quite the scheme going." The nanny cam footage delivered the final blow. "You ungrateful brat," Sarah shouted at Emily one morning. "Rick provides for us. All you have to do is keep the house decent." Emily's quiet response broke my heart. "Daddy never made me bleed." "Your daddy's dead," Sarah snapped. "Rick's all we have now." Barbara and I worked tirelessly to organize everything: school records, medical photos, audio recordings, bank statements. Piece by piece, we put together a solid case. "It's bulletproof, Margaret," Barbara said confidently. "Will it be enough?" I asked, still worried. With the embezzlement angle? More than enough. Lisa's just waiting for the warrant. I watched Emily sleeping peacefully on my couch. Her phone buzzed, another threatening text from Rick about tomorrow's breakfast duties. "We're ready," Detective Martinez confirmed. "Just one more piece of evidence. We need proof of the drug use." The next footage from the nanny cam was shocking. Sarah was snorting lines of powder off Emily's homework desk. Rick beside her, laughing. Using Emily's college fund for their habits, Rick joked in the video. "That's it," Barbara whispered, her eyes fixed on the screen. "That's our smoking gun." I stroked Emily's hair as she slept. My voice broke as I whispered, "Just hold on, baby girl, justice is coming." "What if they hurt her before then?" I asked, my voice shaky. "They won't," Detective Martinez promised. "Tomorrow morning, their little empire crashes down." The next morning, the news blared from my TV. Local CEO and boyfriend arrested in $1 million embezzlement scheme. I watched as Sarah was led away in handcuffs, mascara running down her face. Rick wasn't far behind, shouting about his rights. Then a familiar face appeared on the screen. A woman from Nevada bravely spoke to reporters about how Rick had nearly killed her 3 years ago. Rick's parole officer looked furious. "Unauthorized state hopping. He's going back for a long time." Within hours, child services arrived at my door. "Given the circumstances, we're granting you emergency custody of Emily." In the courthouse hallway, Emily clutched my hand tightly as Sarah appeared. Without her designer clothes and makeup, Sarah looked haunted. "Mom, please," Sarah begged. "I'll get clean. I'll leave Rick. I'll do anything." "Like you did anything when he burned her? When he made her scrub floors until her hands bled?" I said, my voice shook with anger. I was scared. He controlled everything. "No, you chose him over your daughter. You chose drugs over her. You don't get to play the victim now." In court, the judge reviewed all the evidence, photos, videos, teacher reports, and hospital records. Sarah sobbed through her guilty plea. Given the severity of abuse and neglect, the judge declared, all parental rights are hereby terminated. Rick was sentenced to 20 years for parole violation, child endangerment, and fraud. Sarah received 5 years with mandatory rehab. The last I heard, she was living in a halfway house, having lost everything. Months later, Emily smiled at me one evening as we sat at the dinner table. "Grandma, can I join the school play?" I always wanted to, but Rick said performing was for attention seekers. "Of course, sweetheart," I said. "Want to practice your lines with me?" For the first time in years, I saw her real smile. Slowly, my Emily came back. She made the honor roll, joined dance classes, and even had sleepovers with friends. On her 13th birthday, our house was filled with laughter. Barbara brought her famous chocolate cake, and Emily's friends sang to her. "Happy birthday, Emily," I said, hugging her tight. My granddaughter was finally safe, finally happy. Detective Martinez stopped by one afternoon with a special gift, a folder in her hand. "Officially signed adoption papers," she said with a smile. Barbara leaned close and whispered, "Look around, Margaret, this is what healing looks like." I glanced around the room. Emily stood surrounded by friends, wearing the sparkly dress she picked out herself. There were no bruises to hide, no fear in her eyes. She was laughing, telling a story with excitement, her voice strong and clear. "Ready to blow out your candles, sweetie?" I called. "Wait, I want to say something first." Emily turned to face the group. Her face was glowing with confidence. "Last year, I didn't think I'd make it to 13, she said softly, "but Grandma, Mom, she saved me. She showed me what real love is." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her tight, remembering the terrified little girl standing alone in that kitchen. "No, baby, you saved yourself," I whispered. "You were brave enough to tell the truth." Emily smiled. "Can my wish be something that's already come true?" "What's that, sweetheart?" I asked. Just this, being safe, being loved, being free." As she blew out her candles, I noticed her hands. There were no burns, no bruises, just the confident movements of a child who finally knew she was precious, protected, and worthy of love. Last week, Sarah sent a letter. I returned it unopened. Some bridges stay burned, and some apologies come too late. My focus was on Emily's future, bright, beautiful, and free of shadows. That's what real justice looks like, not just punishment for the guilty, but healing for the innocent. My granddaughter, now legally my daughter, would never be anyone's victim again. What would you do if you discovered your daughter-in-law allowing her new partner to abuse your grandchild? Would you quietly gather evidence, like I did, or confront them immediately?